I really believe that the institutions in this country, of which I'm a graduate of, need to be really attuned to the styles, and most of them are, but I mean like long units to study, to the styles and the cultural shifts that have occurred overseas. Not just America, not just Britain, even New Zealand, like the Maori culture, you know, how does theatre relate to that particular identity? And I think that they should, because like Asian theatre is such a broad term. It doesn't mean just one thing.
I hear so many stories about exclusion. You know, when you are half and half,
Yeah.
it often becomes neither. Like,
It's like a push and pull. I think I've always felt that you don't belong to either.
musical theatre space is so, I feel like it's so different from the kind of theatre that you and I are most passionate about.
Yeah.
Not just the experience of it, but the whole like infrastructure of it, the whole like.
But I love that because it is different. I love it because it is a different infrastructure, space.
And you don't find the people annoying.
Yes, I do.
Hi, I'm Suzy Wrong, and this is the Here We Are podcast, where you can catch me having seriously fun chit-chats with my friends in the theatre business. Today, we're shining the spotlight on Jordan Shea. We speak to you from unceded Gadigal lands of the Eora Nation, better known by its colonial name of Sydney. This podcast is brought to you by the Here We Are app, created specifically for people who love theatre. Whether you're a practitioner or an avid audience member, Here We Are is a new social media alternative that allows us to share our passions for the theatre in a digital space designed by people who devote their lives to the arts, distinct from the billionaire tech companies who clearly don't care very much about us. Maybe we can talk about your name.
Yes, what about it?
So for a long time,
Yes.
I felt like you were referring to yourself as Jordy Shea.
Yeah.
I'm not imagining it, right?
No, I want to sound Irish.
No, you did. I felt like you have gone a little bit more like, take me seriously.
I think, yes. Yes, I think like, it was very playful when I think about it, Geordie. I can remember when I was actually given the name Geordie. It was day one. I trained as an actor at Sydney Theatre School, and there was another Jordan, and the teacher was like, "Oh, no, it's too much. It's too much." And I just said, "I'll be Geordie." And I think I was for like 5 or 6 years. Most people in the industry do know me as Geordie, but it is Jordan. And yeah, I've just stuck with it.
So the plays that you had written at the time, did you have the name Geordie? I don't think as a playwright. Were you?
The first one.
Ah, okay.
First one, yeah. But the rest, I think it's always been Jordan. It's always been, and it's kind of weird because my name, Jordan Shea, sometimes doesn't really match this, you know,
Appearance?
Oh yeah, and I've had that. I remember one time I was interviewing for a documentary theatre work, and I went to Doveton in suburban Victoria, and this Filipino woman I was interviewing said, "I thought you were going to be like a white lady with your name, Jordan Shea." And I was like, "No, it's me. It's me as I am."
Do you think you look Filipino?
Yes. Yes. I think I do. Do you?
No. I'm trying to think, you know. I mean, I think because I've got a personal fascination with people who are mixed race, especially like so-called Eurasian. I don't know if the term still stands.
See, I don't really do. Eurasian is like Europe, Asian.
Yeah.
Right? And like I don't know, like Filipino, like I'm a very proud Filipino Australian, because my father is 6 generations Australian. My mother came out here in 1974. So for me, yeah, I think I do look Filipino. When I start talking Tagalog to people on the street or like just people in general, they're like, "Oh wow, you're Filipino?" Like they get really excited.
Is it because they don't see it?
I think because I'm like 10 feet taller than them.
Yeah.
And I sound...
And because when you're speaking...
Yeah, I'm you know, yeah, I have a pretty refined Australian
See,
accent.
I'm fascinated by the you know, people who are Asian as well as white.
Yes.
I think it's interesting because I feel like somehow it's a slightly hurtful when I don't acknowledge them as completely Asian. I feel like I hear so many stories about exclusion. When you are half and half, it often becomes neither. Like
it's like a push and pull.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've always felt that you don't belong to either group. I am probably not an atypical Filipino person. I mean, I grew up in southern Sydney. I didn't grow up in Western Sydney, where a large portion of the diaspora is. My mother has also been here 51 years. So we culturally weren't that deep. I think actually since I started writing works that have been kind of taken seriously and been shown a lot and attracted a very, very large community audience, that my mum and I have probably felt a bit more connected to the culture, I think, which has been really lovely for me, personally very rewarding, but I never set out to do it for that. But I guess in an Australian sense, I don't think anyone can define what an Australian is. I think that label and that kind of topic is just so up for debate for so many reasons and is now so complicated. But there is like a kind of, I don't fit in here, I don't fit in there. But then you sort of do things where you're like, oh, wow, that is really Asian of me. Like saving the Soviet packets from KFC or, doing things that...
Where did you get that from?
That's what we did all growing up.
Is that what your mother did?
That's what my mother did, and like all our Filipino friends just like they look like little KFC, like...
So for someone who was born here, you find that you picked up little traits that you found that were quite specific to your Filipino side.
I think so, yeah. Even I think, and there have been people that have kind of helped me along the way to discover that about myself and make me realize that I'm probably more culturally Asian than culturally Australian. But like I said, no one knows what that is really. Culturally Australian.
When did you write about your heritage or at least the Filipino side? I'm trying to think back. It's been 11 years since I saw your work the first time in 2014, and I feel like it gradually became more and more Filipino. It looked like you were really, really interrogating that and kind of exploring.
Yeah.
And obviously, from the outside, it looks like a self-exploration.
2018, I got a QLab residency through the Joan at Penrith to begin writing what became KASAMA Kita at Belvoir's downstairs space in 2019. So that was the first play that I wrote that was about Filipino people. Up until then, there were no plays that I'd written. I'd written one play, Cage, which I personally, I love.
It's great.
Yeah, I remember you coming to see it.
Yeah, it's so great.
Yeah, and it was...
You were building the set.
That's 100% my dad and I were building the set and painting it, and then it was... I had a fascination with setting shows in Asia. And
so you didn't feel like your kind of self-exploration started with Cage, but after Cage?
No, way after Cage. Funnily enough, I really want to go back to that. I want to go back to setting like shows like Cage, funny, human, but also really, really dark as well. KASAMA kind of intersected at a time I felt, so in 2019 with KASAMA, it intersected at a time when I think companies, practitioners were really capitalizing and riding a huge migrant story wave. I think it was pioneered by Counting and Cracking extraordinarily well. And I think then we got a lot of great stories after that. And I really felt that, right, it's time for me to add my voice to it. And particularly at Belvoir at the time, Counting and Cracking had happened, and 2019 was a massive year for Belvoir, both downstairs and upstairs. And I felt, well, I want to do something that stands out. So I started writing about that, about the Philippines and Australia's history with the Philippines. And KASAMA was a beautiful success.
It was heavily inspired by your mother's story?
Yes. Yeah. The plot, not so much. The narrative, absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So 1974, there was the explosion of Filipino nurses coming to Australia following the declaration of martial law in the Philippines 2 years prior. And there was kind of a wave that came out and established themselves all over Sydney, but predominantly in Balmain Hospital. Yeah.
And since then, you've had a string of stories that's along those lines, right? Of exploring Filipino identity.
Yeah, I'd like to think that it does more than explore. I think what it does is try and takes a standard Filipino character person and puts them in a situation that wider theatre-going audiences may think, I'm familiar with that. So Arte LOVIA in 2022 dealt with disenfranchisement. It dealt with leaving your family. And I think that's just really universal as well.
Does that mean that you are very conscious when you're writing these stories about Filipino-Australian characters that they would speak as widely as possible?
I think speak is, yes. I think to have... I believe the theatre is a place where characters can say really powerful things to each other. And we as an audience members, we shouldn't say, oh, they would say that. I think we should just accept it because it's fiction. We're there. We're watching fiction. I mean, there are truthful elements to it, but we are watching fiction. So why shouldn't we kind of give a bit of a leeway to it, I think.
How do you find your audience has been on this ride with you? Both Filipino and non-Filipino?
Yeah, I mean, non-Filipino, when I think of like KASAMA and Arte LOVIA, which are the two big ones, and then later with MALACAñANG in Queensland, I don't know non-Filipino wise. They tend to come away and say, I've learnt so much, which I love because I'm a teacher as well, but I love that they've learnt things. I love that they have been exposed to histories and truths that they may not know immediately. Filipino-wise, really positive, but the more positive thing is there's generations that come. So they bring their mothers, they bring their grandmothers. And I love that they respond so well to it.
Something that I'm really interested in is how the theatre-going culture happens in Australia.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of discussions about representation, which often sounds like the kinds of people you see performing, which means that a lot of kind of representations of POC tends to be restricted to the craft of acting. And then slowly it's become like yourself for writing, which has been a great development, right? Because
huge.
Yeah.
Well, there's a good crop of us that kind of have come up.
Yeah. And then now people are directing, which is great.
Yes.
So we're slowly going beyond, I love the term black cladding, that I had learned sort of recently. Do you know the term?
Black clad.
So I think it comes from African-American activism where companies hire public-facing people who are Black Americans to represent, what's the term, to signify, to demonstrate that they stand for certain values that they don't actually do, because behind the cladding, it's still an old system, it's a traditional system.
Nothing changes.
Yeah, it's the old white patriarchy.
Yes.
So when we talked about representation being very, very important, and for the longest time it sounded like that was the only thing that was important, it felt very much like black cladding, where you just kind of have a traditional white patriarchy hiring people of color, often in supporting roles, to perform. But essentially the thing is still an old white system.
To be front-facing.
Front-facing.
To be front-facing.
To disguise.
Yes.
To obfuscate, right?
Yeah.
But gradually it's changed. So now the writers are people of color. Now directors are people of color, and we're working on getting design people to be people of color. My big question now is the audience. I often celebrate, like you've got shows coming up, and I'm celebrating all year because I've heard about your shows. The announcements came in August last year. So I'm like celebrating, I'm really looking forward to that one. That one.
Yes.
And then most of the time I go in there, it's not too bad when it's opening night because people that are invited are quite balanced.
Yes.
Right? But still
Curated to suit the production.
But still you feel a sense that, it's not really a work for my community, but I can see that my community is here. But on the occasions when I'm not able to make opening nights and I'm going to see a show of this nature later, it's full minstrel vibes. It's full like we are telling our story, we're really revealing our trauma to rich white people who are watching with a lot of deference and respect and all that, which is great. So in a way, I don't want it to be all about their problem. I want to look at how we get in there, how we change the way we as Asian Australians, for example, as well as, other people of color. How do we get involved with the arts a bit more? And I'm assuming because you're writing about that specific cultural experience, if you have any thoughts about that.
Well, I think that when I think about my own personal experience and I think about my parents growing up, particularly my mother, when I was growing up, and we never went to the theatre. So I didn't go to the theatre as a kid. I went and saw 2 big musicals, maybe 2 or 3 big musicals. And that was it, only because my parents used to get discounted tickets through the nurses union.
Oh, wow.
Midwives and nurses union. Yeah, that's the only reason we went.
So for the big expensive musicals?
Yeah, Lion King, which I saw Kenneth, and
Kenneth
Moraleda, my closest collaborator, and Pan, Peter Pan, which was a big production of the Capitol Theatre, which I kind of became a little obsessed with, like the lore around it, and Oliver, which closed in Sydney and then went to Singapore. So it was... that they were the 3 big ones that I saw. They were the 3 big musicals that I saw. But when I think about it, even into my teenage years, it wasn't on my parents' radar. My parents never said, and my mother particularly, never said, we should not see this. You shouldn't go to the theatre. You shouldn't do that. She never, ever did that. I just don't think it registered within her culturally. I don't think that she... really, it was the last thing. It was the last thing that we would do. So there is a bit of a push there of how do we change a marginalized group.
Pause, even though she had a white husband.
Yeah, but there's something interesting because my parents were very, very hard workers and would spend money very, very judiciously. And still to this day do so. And the theatre is mainly built on discretionary spending. People spend what they have, or if they're subscribers, they'll subscribe for years because they have it. My mum and dad were very, very much not into the idea of going to the theatre. I don't know why. It didn't affect me, but it was just something that it was by no means neglect or anything. I had an amazing childhood and we traveled all the time, which had a huge impact on me. But I just don't think it was on their radar. And so when you look at a marginalized group where the older generation just don't conceive they just don't understand like why we should be going, whether, do they want to spend more money on going to a nice restaurant? I don't know. I haven't really done the work.
That makes me think that it's about class. Do you think that's
Absolutely
accurate?
I think it's about class because the reason I love the theatre as well is like you have to be there. It's about getting people to come. It's tiring, it's exhausting, and sometimes it's unrewarding, but it is about getting people to come. And I think that it is about class and access. Number one, the tickets are getting crazy exorbitant.
Well, for good reason.
Absolutely for good reason. And it's matching the cost. And there are kind of access tickets as well. You know, the great deals that you can get, and the codes, and Bellevue's amazing artist ticket program as well. But I struggle, and of course Sydney Theatre Company's ticket pricing as well, you know, is really important. But I don't know if it's something that you can change immediately, getting those people there, because it is really based, I believe, on what you were exposed to.
So can you change it gradually?
I think so. I think you change it gradually. I also think, like, when we talk about community engagement, I remember for the couple of years, less now, community engagement was the buzzword. It was the big thing. But a lot of people didn't actually know how to do it. And Pascal Berry, who has worked for the Biennale and Blacktown Arts, and is a Filipino guy as well, he would say to me, the biggest thing about community engagement is there needs to be an exit strategy as well for the community and the project. How does the community say, right, the project was good for me? And also, do we give them space to say the project was not for me? And therefore, how do we readjust our art to suit them? I know we're jumping a bit all over the place.
No, I like it. Is this about the audience experience or the artist involved?
Audience experience.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you're always asked, who is this for? As a writer, as a maker, you are always asked, who is this for? I believe that is the hardest question. And I believe anyone asking that is actually putting a person through a test, a bit of a test as well. And I think we need to be careful.
Do you ask yourself that question?
Less now. I think I did maybe 5-6 years ago. But and companies reserve the right to say, who is this for? But at the same time, if you're talking to an emerging playwright who wants to put their cultural trauma on stage, just give them a minute to think about it. Or at least email them previously and say, hey, just want to talk to you about your audience, which they reserve the right to do, but there needs to be a clear discourse around it. Maybe there is. I don't want to say that there isn't, but it's a hard question to consider, who is it for? Because if you say, oh, who's this for? Filipino people. What makes the average Western Sydney Filipino person who statistically is out of the zone of the theatre, 40, 50, why should they come and see your show? So it is also, yes, gradual change within audiences, but I also believe it's up to the artist to be like, how do I access them?
I want to ask you about the time or times that you went to the Philippines after we became friends. I remember one distinct trip you went to the Philippines. I felt like it was quite a long trip, and you had posted photos on social media of, I think, this place that I had gone before, where you were having a meal like in the waterfalls. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I think, yes. Yeah, it was 2017.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember distinctly the yellow flags, and then the tables were set between, like, in a stream or something, and then your feet would be wet as you're having a meal there.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, yes. I forget where it was.
Yeah.
I was up to my knees.
Yeah.
Wearing life jackets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on those, when you do a trip like that, I'm assuming you would have had a sense of how people relate to theatre in that culture?
Yes, I mean, they love the big musicals.
Mm-hmm.
There was also, when I was there, a pretty big fascination with American drama.
On stage?
Yes. Yeah, so Manila Repertory Theatre Company had a pretty big fascination with American drama. A lot of the kind of acting fraternity and, you know, kind of theatre families in the Philippines come from money. So therefore, a lot of them have been able to train overseas and have been able to bring back what they've got. So it is a quite high-class art form over there.
What about for the working class, quote-unquote working class? I mean, if they're not off watching Shakespeare or, you know, that kind of Western form, did you find an equivalence of community, about congregation, about community, you know, gathering that involved a performance?
Yeah, I saw a couple of live tinkling performances.
Is that the bamboo?
Yeah.
The bamboo, like a dance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was probably the closest that I got to seeing a community
Yeah.
performance. But there is a pretty remarkable history of street performances in the Philippines, particularly in the Marcos era, which was guerrilla style theatre. So they would kind of, I mean, you know, like,
So it's about resistance.
you know, they drop everything and they perform.
Yeah.
You know, and then everyone's like, what's going on? And then they pick up and they go in case, you know, authorities need to swoop in. And there were also performances around the Duterte area and then era. So the Rodrigo Duterte war on drugs, they kind of did those guerrilla style performances. Now that the Philippines is in a bit more of a stable era, but there was also a performance by the University of Philippines in Visayas recently, because the big discussion politically in the Philippines is the South China Sea kind of push and pull. And University of Philippines, it's a video I saw a while ago, they did like a dance piece called Welcome to the Philippines People's Republic of China. So it was really clever. I'm going to look for it when I get home. But it was really...
Find the where?
In Visayas, which is a province, but it's the University of the Philippines.
So was it performed on campus?
Yes.
Ah.
So because most of the activist theatre came from University of the Philippines, UP. Yeah, so that's kind of what I understood from when I was...
Because I feel like as immigrants, we've all come from cultures where there are modes of storytelling.
Yes.
That really is theatre, but we kind of don't usually refer to it as theatre quite as readily because the form looks a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't look...
Yeah. So when we say that our people are not attending theatre, I'm always saying, well, that's because your theatre is so different from our theatre.
Well, what they're used to, yeah. I think what they're used to is pretty different as well.
Yeah. So the biggest riddle I have is, how do we find the familiar for our communities, you know? Because it makes no sense that they're not interested in storytelling. No one's not interested in storytelling.
In one mode or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we're struggling so hard to get them to our conventional theatre spaces, right? And at some stage, I feel like there has to be the onus. At the moment, it feels like the onus is so much on community, on migrants, and then us changing our consumption behavior. Yeah. Rather than the other way around. I mean, I don't know what the solution is, obviously, which is why I think about it so much, because we come from, I come from more like a Chinese historical background, and our theatrical forms look a certain way, and you had just kind of give an expression to what Filipinos might be like, in contemporary times, as well as kind of like something that we would like probably say folk culture. I don't know how that...
It's also steeped very much in like First Nations Filipino folklore. But I would like to see more of it. But I think the answer also lies in the theatre training in this country. I really believe that the institutions in this country, of which I'm a graduate of, need to be really attuned to the styles, and most of them are, but I mean like long units to study, to the styles and the cultural shifts that have occurred overseas. Not just America, not just Britain, even New Zealand, like the Maori culture, how does theatre relate to that particular identity? And I think that they should, because like Asian theatre is such a broad term. It doesn't mean just one thing. I have a really close friend who I think you've met, Hao Nhin Lim.
Yes.
And we've worked together a lot. And I just stayed at his place in Clifton Hill in Melbourne. And he's always frustrated because he feels that we as a Western country don't fully grasp, because we're so saturated, how different Asian theatre is. And he's so inspiring in that regard, but also it's up to the institutions, educational institutions, to train the next generation about it.
Let's talk about your training. What was the institution that you graduated from?
The VCA, Victorian College of the Arts.
Oh, you went over there.
Yeah. Where do you think I went?
I just felt like you were so entrenched in Sydney. I just felt like it was.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I interviewed for NIDA and the VCA.
Okay.
And the NIDA interview, I remember just the person that interviewed me, they led me to the door and they said, I was really nervous. And they said, it's okay, Jordan. Welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. And I thought, well, fuck this place. I'm not for it. It's not me. It's not me. And then I remember the VCA interview was really wonderful. Raimondo Cortese and Richard Murfitt, who were kind of from the La Mama era and Ranters Theatre. And they had taught each other. Richard had taught Raimondo, and I loved that they were interviewing me because I've always loved intergenerational conversations, always. And we just got along. And then I wound up in Melbourne.
And was that when you decided that playwriting would be the main thing for you?
Yeah, I did. And I was very Sydney when I was in Melbourne.
What's that mean?
Tame.
Ah.
Really tame.
You think Sydney is a tamer city?
Just in terms of the personalities that taught me in Melbourne. So in VCA, Melissa Reeves taught me, one of the co-authors of Who's Afraid of the Working Class. Ross Mueller, Lachlan Philpott, Jean Tay, amazing writers and practitioners. And they were really they shook you. They really got you, particularly Melissa Reeves. She kind of would always say, lean into the darkness. And at that time in 2016, 17, people were leaning into the darkness. So I kind of liked you know what, it was about that time I started really caring about politics as well and becoming politically engaged. And I think that the Melbourne training had a lot to do with that.
So theatre came first.
Yeah, I think theatre came first.
And then it became more politicized.
Well, I always was interested. I can remember the first time that I was interested in politics as a kid. It was during the Children Overboard scandal, John Howard. And he had made it up. His government had made up that Children Overboard scandal. And I was just... my dad just said, oh, it's all lies. And I was like, and it was the video of the children going overboard. But what John Howard's government failed to tell us was that it was sinking.
That's why they were jumping out.
That's why they were jumping out, as you would. And I remember my dad explaining that to me because my dad, was very left. And I was just like, right, well, that's when I know that's a lie. Yeah, I have never thought about that until now. Never really spoken about that until now.
And that's a political awakening.
It totally was.
And it's performative as well, is it?
Yeah, it was. It was because it was an act. They were throwing their children, but he was lying.
Am I right to say that you're probably going to be a writer who will never have politics far away from the text?
I think politics is always in everything we do.
I know that, but I feel like
soundbite.
I feel like you're so intentional with it, though.
Yeah, I mean, politics for me is about engaging with systems of power, or lack thereof. So it will always be in there. Even something new that I'm writing that is kind of a departure from form is about how we deal with the politics in our day-to-day lives locally.
That's great. That's a great way of seeing it. So you've got 2 coming up.
Yeah.
Which I'm so excited for.
Thank you.
Which I'm going to Queensland for.
It's big.
Do you know why I'm making the trip?
Why?
I feel like because we became friends early on in both our careers.
Almost at the same
time.
Starting out. Yeah.
And because you're so much younger than me.
Okay, well, thank you. Yes.
Yeah, you are.
Well, yeah, I know.
Yeah. And, there are people of your generation that I feel a bit of a mentor.
Yeah.
A mentorship over. Never quite directly.
No.
But I feel like just with my body of work, as well as the specific things that I've written about your work, So I feel like a tiny bit of ownership of you taking this big leap to do a show at Queensland Theatre.
Did you want to cut at the box office?
I've got money to
You do.
No, because we've waited a long time for you to find a bigger audience. Because part of my frustration is, I see your shows and I'm like, oh, this is so good, but the audience is so tiny. Because you've only played to small houses in small spaces so far. I think when 1 hour No Oil happened, I just thought, there's no turning back now. That was when I felt like you kind of rushed through the gate and you've like planted your flag, and it's like, this is a serious, not just a really great writer, but a really serious writer.
Yeah, when Kenneth and I wrote that together, and I'm very proud of that play. We are both very proud, and we're very hopeful that it will get another life. Thank you so much for those words, because we did start at the same time. And I also think about the first review that you wrote for me, and I'm going to misquote it, but you did say it's something about not totally polished, but it was a gallant attempt.
Okay.
And at 21, to receive that, I translated that in my head to keep going.
Yeah.
Which I have for 11 years. And I share the frustrations as well of never having a bigger audience and getting so close so many times.
All this stuff behind the scenes that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, prizes and awards and the rigmarole of programming in this country is pretty tough, and it's getting harder. But then to win the Queensland Premier's Dramas Award, which gave it a production, MALACAñANG a production, really did feel quite big for me. So to have you there will mean a lot. So,
I think it closes a circle a little bit, I feel like...
Are you going to talk after MALACAñANG?
Oh, because we are talking, because I'm not reviewing.
I know. I play.
I'm going to start reviewing outside of Sydney. It's going to open a whole can of worms.
Stuck in emails and everything.
Yeah. I mean, I was really happy to see that it got programmed. I was really happy that it was taking you to a new audience. I'm assuming you haven't had a lot of your work presented outside of Sydney. Yeah, because sometimes it's also because our communities are small. So I feel like, all right, you've done so many. What's that, like 6 or something in Sydney that has Filipino characters in it. And I feel like you must have reached almost the end of Filipinos in Sydney who might be interested in theatre. They would know that we've got an artist in our midst who's doing.
Yeah, they do. And there was yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but then what about all the others in the other cities?
Yeah.
So I feel like those are the people that are going to benefit so much from your work.
Thank you. I mean, it is kind of full circle for me, because MALACAñANG Made Us is everything I've wanted to do as an artist. It intersects the digital world, the contemporary world, and my love for history. That's what the play does. And I'm just really happy to be doing it. And I think, fingers crossed, one day it'll come to Sydney. I'd love to see it. I think it will. But it's not important to me. What is important to me is that it's on. And everything that I've done up until this point has mattered and contributed to that play, in a great way, I think. Yeah.
But you've also got something in Sydney.
I do.
At Hayes Theatre in November.
Yeah, in November.
And Hayes Theatre only does musicals. Have you written a musical?
No, well, this is technically a play with music.
Okay.
For Nancy Hayes, who has become a really close friend.
That is so unexpected.
Yeah. I think it's a play in itself. I mean, we're both 80. And no, I have a real love for theatrical eldership. And I believe that we do need to keep creating roles for them as much as we can, realistically as much as we can. And when they really hit it, and I think about, our Peter Carrolls and John Gaydens and Nancy, very much Nancy. And the opportunity was given to me to write a treatment for her And I was so surprised that she was on board. But what it told me when she said yes was she has a love for Australian storytelling. That's all it is. She could retire tomorrow, but she has a love for supporting new writers and keeping on going. There's no airs and graces about it. It's the fact that she just loves theatre.
Is this the start of a new chapter for your playwriting?
Maybe a little bit. Yeah. I mean, I started kind of toying with new ideas that really are going back to my sense of humor, because sometimes I get worried that the work that I've written isn't funny enough. And I consider myself slightly funny.
You're funny.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Thank you. And it's sort of like the new work that I'm kind of working on, is leaning into my humor, leaning into what matters to me, and also leaning into chaos a bit.
You're going away from playwriting into screenwriting.
Yeah, well, I'm starting to, yeah.
Okay. That gets me nervous, because screenwriting is a world that's very, very far from what I do. What I feel is very far from what I do.
We'll still talk. It's all right. We'll still talk.
Whether I like it or not.
Whether you like it or not. I mean, I'll never stop. I love the theatre. And I want to write a book. But for me, the audiences for television are just so much wider. And I'm getting to a point where I would like to just see, the reality is I'd like to see more people see my work.
So that means a focus shift.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right.
A little bit, yeah.
Does that mean that it's going to be less likely that we're going to see your new work on Sydney theatre stages?
Well, I say that, but then whenever I start being like, right, I'm good, I'm done, something always happens.
Yeah, I feel like it's very little of it is up to you, really.
Yeah, it's never up to me.
Yeah.
It's up to the universe, which I used to laugh at the concept of things being up to the universe.
Yeah.
But I really do think that if you put something out there, things change, you know? So, I think one of the earliest things I ever did after I finished VCA was I got a development at Sydney Theatre Company, which was under a rough draft program called Barbaric Truth, which has never gone on, but it was developed. It was one of the earliest developments Courtney Stewart directed. Had a great cast. It was about the Rodrigo Duterte drug wars. And I remember literally finishing that and thinking, I am going to be so employed and so big.
What year was this?
2017.
Okay.
And then I realized, I was like, it doesn't happen that way. And I know that's stupid, but I was like 23 and it just doesn't happen like that. And then I was like, you have to keep working. You have to keep doing these little things, going back to performing, doing all that great stuff.
Will you ever give up?
No, there's no point. There's no point. No. Why?
I
just can't. I don't think I will.
Yeah, I feel like it's back to the previous thing about, it's kind of not really about what you want anymore. It kind of has a like a life of its own.
It does. It totally has a life of its own.
Yeah.
And you just can't control for it. Like I never expected to do the producers.
As an actor.
Ever. I love the show. I had a bit of fun as an actor 10 years ago, and I love to sing. And then I just never expected to do it. And my life really changed.
Because you've been on that project for like half a year.
Yeah. It changed. It changed my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I got a good review from you about it.
Yeah.
So.
I'm sure you got a good review from so many people.
I
feel like everyone loved the show.
Yeah, it was universally loved. It was quite, and we had the most incredible ensemble working in it too.
How does that, being in a really, really popular show that sold every single ticket?
Yes, before it opened.
Yeah. Has that shifted the way you think about your career?
Yes, because I'm an Asian presenting man. I'm not white presenting. I'm an Asian man who is a character actor of a certain age that has a certain playing age as well. And since the producers closed, there has been kind of offers and can you come and look at this? Can you look at that? And I've realized that there is a bit of a gap in like these roles. Culturally, these roles are played by certain people, you know, certain white men, and now it's kind of very different for me because the industry knows I could do it. And so I mean, Producers was great. Physically, it was a big wake-up call for me, and I can't really do another show this year, but next year and in the future, yeah, I want to keep going.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's going to be writer/performer.
Yeah.
It's quite a
I
thing.
really like being a musical theatre performer.
Oh, so musical theatre in specific.
Yeah, oh, yeah. I can't do a play.
Why?
I can't remember lines. I need like sound cues.
Have you tried?
No.
I feel like it's not difficult.
No, I mean, like, I don't know. I just like being part of, you know, I like hearing the orchestra and just being like, oh, you're on. And
That is so weird to me.
Yeah, what? Yeah.
Because the musical theatre space is so, I feel like it's so different from the kind of theatre that you and I are most passionate about.
Yeah.
Not just the experience of it, but the whole like infrastructure of it, the whole like.
But I love that because it is different. I love it because it is a different infrastructure, space.
And you don't find the people annoying?
Yes, I do. No, I love them all. No, I find that it's different because there are like a number of young Asian creatives and performers that actually would come to me on the Producers to chat and what being Asian in the industry means to them is so different of what it means to me now. And I felt that I was kind of mentoring like them a bit and helping them kind of understand, you know, what it means to be like that in an industry. But at the same time, when I was their age, just kind of writing my earliest plays before VCA, I didn't think about diversity at all because we weren't talking about it.
Okay.
2014, 13.
Right.
We weren't not nearly at the amount that we did.
You had no awareness of your sort of being excluded.
No.
You felt like you were just like normal.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It didn't.
Okay.
That was it. And then 2016 and 17, the world just got so conservative, right? That we...
Oh, right. With Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I felt there was a huge shift in the stories that the average artist wanted to hear or wanted to be a part of. So you saw the change and then suddenly everyone's talking about diversity. And that's where I really felt it happen.
And then suddenly you're in the center of it.
Suddenly you're in the center of it and suddenly the artist in you wants to be part of the conversation. So I kind of always put the change, because there were, you know, obviously discussions around gender equity in theatre, like women in film and theatre. Do you remember that? WIFTs?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think that was like 2015. But then the conversation kind of went cultural. And then, like, I feel that LGBTQIA plus storytelling has always been kind of running through that to discuss it. And then in recent years, I felt that the discourse has centered disability.
Trying to.
Trying to. And it's an area that I'm actually learning about as well, because I'm interested to see how that kind of manifests into performance and that sort of thing. So, yeah, I mean, I've loved that the conversations have been so rigorous and so exciting.
And yet you're going to musical theatre.
Where the conversation is sort of so rigorous and so exciting.
Well, it seems like they're starting to be.
Yeah. Filipino can play a German, you know, what is there?
That's true, isn't it? I actually didn't realize. Oh, yeah. A Filipino playing a Nazi.
Yeah. I'm glad you said it. Yeah.
Okay. I would like you to sell us the 2 shows that are opening. Okay. So 2025, this year in October at Queensland Theatre. What's happening?
MALACAñANG Made US, which is my play about 2 activist brothers who live in Queensland, and they were part of the 1986 People Power Revolution. And one of the brothers is now raising a son on the digital space who is a digital activist. And he decides that he wants to go to the Philippines and fight against the election of Bongbong Marcos. And it's all about unraveling who he is because he has no idea about his father and uncle's history. And I love it.
I love it. I love the I love talking about the younger generation discovering the heritage, which I feel like it applies to most people.
Through that realm, like you can have him sit there and just flick through photo albums, but we're really pushing the fact that he is a TikToker that has no concept of his own personal history, that his father and his uncle were part of a huge revolution. So it's that intergenerational activism.
Is your sense of humor going to come through though?
Oh, let's hope. Yeah. Yeah, you know, Kenneth will be there to tweak the jokes.
Right.
Yeah, he'll be there to make sure.
I know you like to write jokes. You really love to write jokes, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Do the actors come up to you to like for tips on how to deliver the jokes?
No, I've never had that. I've never had that. Yeah.
So it's all out on the paper.
Maybe Nancy will. I'm not sure, but she kind of has every right to. But
all right, now sell me the show that Nancy's in. That's the following month in November.
Merry and Bright is about an 80-year-old woman called Shirley who has played Mrs. Claus for 40 years at David Jones, and then one day gets a memo that she's been fired, and she vows to fight to take her job back. Yeah.
A woman fights to take her job back at the age of 80.
Yeah.
And you said it's a play with songs.
Yeah, so underscoring and also a couple of songs by Victoria Falconer.
Oh, Victoria's writing the songs.
Yeah.
Are you doing the lyrics?
I'll do bits of them. I'm not very good at writing lyrics. Vicky's very good at writing lyrics. And she's very fun. She's my ate, so my big sister.
Is she Filipino?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you know that?
I knew that she was part Asian.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know it was Filipino.
Yeah. I mean, we always, we always joke about it.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So you're collaborating with Victoria.
Yeah.
Both Filipino Aussies, and then writing this play for a white Australian icon.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
A icon.
Oh, icon. Great sense of freedom.
That's a joke.
It's a great joke. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.